Okay. All right. We're live, but we'll let it breathe just for a second while we bring on Facebook. I've been like binge listening to Black Sabbath and like Ozzy Osbourne videos and Black Sabbath videos on YouTube the last like 3 or 4 days while I'm working. RIP Ozzy. Welcome in, everybody. It's the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him. He is Zack Kelberman. Zack, we got news back on the Drew Sanders injury. For those of you who may have missed it, dadgummit. It ended up being a torn ligament in his foot. He is not expected, Zack, to be ready before the season starts. That's all we really have right now, courtesy of Ian Rappaport. Such a tough break for the kid.
It is, especially because he's coming off the Achilles from last season. Some players are just more injury prone than others. We've learned that in Broncos country the last decade or so. Tough break for Drew. Sounds like he avoided a season-ending injury, though, so hopefully he'll come back by the end of the year. And fortunately, Chad, this is not a position where he was going to start. They have their two starters, and he's one of the backups, and they have other backups they can lean on now. So if there's one player that was going to go down, unfortunately, this was Drew Sanders.
I'm just sharing a little thing on Facebook because it's not wanting to connect. So don't worry about it, Scott. We're live over here. At least one of the Facebooks is working tonight on StreamYard. Okay. But Zack, in terms of where the Broncos go from here with the backup guys, obviously it devolves to Justin Sternad initially, which was always the case, but it's a little bit of a bump up for Lavell Bailey, right? Which second year, former undrafted guy who has begun to kind of shine in training camp, at least early on in coverage. But then you're starting to see why amongst whatever the number was it 12, 13 college free agent signings, Zack? 3 of them were inside linebackers, including J.B. Brown, Kareem Reed, and Jordan Turner. Who do you think benefits most amongst that trio with the Sanders injury?
Bailey, of the guys that you mentioned, because he already has a year in the system, and didn't he have that pick 6 in the preseason last year, Chad?
Yep.
We thought he was the next great hope at inside linebacker, and he's obviously a standout player in coverage. He proved that. So I would say he benefits the most, and he has a leg up right now to be the third inside linebacker behind Singleton and Dre Greenlaw.
These guys are interesting, though. I have to go back and forth between Chrome and Firefox on this, but J.B. Brown in particular, he's interesting. We had a story about him shortly after the Broncos signed him. He's a guy like Reed I'm really familiar with, coming out of the University of Utah, another Rocky Mountain guy. Jordan Turner I'm not as wise to. I got to do some studying on Jordan Turner, but bottom line is the Broncos knew going into this offseason that they were relying on, their inside linebacker core, it's very talented, especially with Dre Greenlaw at the top, Alex Singleton as a run guy, sideline to sideline, and even Justin Sternad, but at least he has a little bit of experience. But Drew Sanders injury history, Greenlaw injury history, Singleton, I have a feeling they're going to have to lean on some of those younger guys. I wouldn't surprise me if they carry more than 4 inside linebackers, or at the very least, multiple inside linebackers on the practice squad.
You had a very prescient article a few months ago, I think it was, about should the Broncos, and we talked about it on the podcast, should the Broncos go out and sign C.J. Mosley at the time for veteran presence in case something happened to a player like Drew Sanders, and lo and behold, something happened to Drew Sanders. So I don't know if anyone's wondering if they're going to make a veteran move. I see some comments, maybe Juwan Bentley. I think the Broncos for now are going to see what they have with the players they have on the roster before looking outside.
We have a bona fide Super Chat superstar and a brand new member. If you guys missed it, we finally rolled out a membership offering on MHH YouTube. And the Papa Bear, he's a new member. So thank you, brother. And, of course, as always, man, appreciate the Super Chat. He says, good evening, Broncos country, hashtag 13-4, +++++. And we all know what that means. Thank you, brother. See here? David McElrath became a YouTube member. And I need to circle back on that and see where we're at. We're going to get kicking off with the content on the membership offering, members only stuff this coming week with the first edition of Broncos Book Club for those of you who want to join and be a part of it on August 2nd. So if you own Mike Kliss's new book, we had him on the show talking about the new book, The Elway Years. If you own that or would like to participate, get the book, read the first chapter, become a member. There's two options. You can do the $3 a month option or the Mount Rushmore Superstar option at $10. Either way. We'll meet on August 2nd, next Saturday, and we'll talk about it. It'll be fun. It's just a fun little, nerd kind of thing to do. But for the sick maniacs in this community like us who obsess over and want to know everything there is to know about the Broncos, I think you'll have fun with it. But Zach, just some hellos here. David Youngkin, what's up, buddy? And yeah, it does suck, he says, for Drew, because we have no idea what type of player he could become. And Allen, Sutton, Benito, then JFM. Yeah, we'll get to the JFM thing here in a minute. William, what's up, dude? Good to see you. Saying it seems that Sanders will end up being a special teams guy like Sternad for his career. I don't know if he's going to even, Zach, have the runway to produce that even, unfortunately. I mean, his rookie year, he was actually active in all 17 games. He started 4, and then that's when disaster began to strike, right? He had the Achilles injury during offseason workouts, missed all of the 2024 season except the last 4 games. And then we heard all the positive talk, Zach, from Sean Payton and George Payton about Sanders at the Combine and at other points, the ownership meetings. So stoked about him. Obviously, the team has been. But if you can't stay healthy, man,
right?
And you can't blame the player. It's just bad luck, right? And the Broncos have a now sterling reputation when it comes to player wellness, strength and conditioning, sports science, nutrition. In other words, whatever it takes to keep guys on the field, it's just not taken, Zach, with Drew Sanders, unfortunately.
Yeah, it sucks. Like you were saying, you can't make the club from the tub. You can't contribute if you're on the sideline or you're hurt. And when he's on the field, he looked like a difference maker, had the makings of being a difference maker. Remember when Sternad was benched? I think it was last season against the Chargers. Sanders comes in, one snap, he gets a sack on Herbert or a big-time play on Herbert. We needed that difference-making potential at inside linebacker. Fortunately, the Broncos signed it in Dre Greenlaw, but we, like the comment said, we don't really know what we have in Sanders, and we won't know for the foreseeable future, and that sucks.
That's one thing that he definitely has in spades. Like when he's on the field, he makes an impact, and he's still very raw, obviously, Drew Sanders, and young, and honestly, relatively inexperienced as an inside linebacker because, I mean, he played that only his final year at Arkansas, played the position as a rookie in Denver. Then they moved him to outside linebacker, moved him back less than a year later. But Zach, on the topic of, you just brought it up, I got to find it. Dre Greenlaw. So the pads come on tomorrow on Monday. And on Saturday after practice, Sean Payton was asked if he's seen some good mobility from Dre Greenlaw thus far. And here's what he said, quote, "He's another one of those guys that's on a pitch count. We're being smart. He's impressive when you put the tape on. Monday will come and the pads, and there are certain players," I love this part, Zach, "that really express themselves in full gear, and he'll be one of them," close quote. So, man, say your prayers, pay your tithing to the football gods, and just hope and pray that Dre Greenlaw stays on the field for the Broncos this year.
I have a feeling Sean Payton would have loved to coach Derek Wolfe. He seems to like the chatty, deaf woo kind of guys. He talked about Malcolm Roach. He goes, sometimes you hear him before you see him because he's so much of a loudmouth, and you need that type of motor. So, yeah, I could see him being a Sean Payton guy, and I'm so excited finally to see Greenlaw in action and start to shake some of that rust off from the injury, Chad. Pads would be popping.
No doubt. Ralph, good to see you, buddy. Saying you can't strengthen a cracked egg. I don't think I've ever heard that before. And I've been on this planet for 45 years. I don't think I've ever heard that. I've heard a lot of different other, egg sayings and whatnot, but that's a new one to me. Well said. Taylor Christensen, a member, as you can see. You see that little circle there, Zach, next to his name. That signifies that. So big props and clout. You guys are also, as members, each week you're going to be getting public shouts on our live stream. So Taylor, appreciate you, buddy. He says, "Hey, guys, where do we go from here with Drew Sanders? Go Denver Broncos." So he's going to end up on not physically unable to perform because it didn't happen before football activities. He'll end up on injured reserve, right, Zach? And then he'll have to miss the first. What are the new rules since COVID? 4 weeks.
Yeah.
What is it?
4.
First 4. And then, so based on initial reports, and of course, I'm sure we'll hear more from Sean Payton tomorrow, hopefully with some specifics. But if it's not season ending, I think if it was season ending, we would know that from Ian Rappaport. But it just said basically he's expected to miss some extended time and not. I mean, I'll just read what he wrote on X. Here's what he actually posted. Drew Sanders, an up-and-coming defender, suffered a tendon injury in his foot in practice that will keep him out an extended period of time. Sources say post-MRI, Sanders is not expected back before the season begins, and further testing will determine what's next. So sounds like as of this very moment, or at least when Rappaport got that information, Zach, the Broncos aren't even a hundo. They're not absolutely certain yet the full extent, the how long it's going to take for him to rehab and work back. But again, I think they're optimistic because if it was season ending, if they knew that, I think they'd know it. It'd be pretty clear from initial MRI. But he is going to miss time, and he's definitely going to miss a summer of training camp and preseason that, as a raw, talented, but still raw Zach and inexperienced linebacker, he absolutely needed. But I think the Broncos, to answer your question, they're going to stick with him for now, I think, and they're going to work through it. They don't have much of a choice at this stage because he got injured on their watch, and he's got one more year left on his contract. I mean, I could be wrong. Who knows? But I don't think so. I think they'll stick with him.
Well, first of all, it sounds like a weird injury. Mike Kliss said it was the connective tendon in his foot. So I don't know where the Broncos go in terms of the medicals, but yeah, I mean, status quo, they're going to shelve him on IR like Chad was talking about. And he was always going to be the 3rd or 4th inside linebacker. So they're going to move forward, and we're all going to knock wood that Alex Singleton and Dre Greenlaw stay healthy. They have Lavell Bailey behind him. Chad mentioned Brown and Kareem Reed. We'll see if some of the younger guys start to pop in Drew Sanders' absence.
The Ronk is in the house. Good to see Mike, as always, my brother. Appreciate you saying good evening, Chad and Zach, on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Go Bo Broncos. Thank you, buddy. And we also have Tucson Phil, who I saw. I was in the YouTube channel last night, and I saw you signed up as a member, Phil. So thank you, pal. I know most of your how you watch the show is Facebook. You'll hop over to YouTube every once in a while, but thank you for becoming a member, big dog, supporting us. Phil says, good evening, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. Looks like Lavell Bailey will be getting plenty of reps. Just hoping he becomes a Pro Bowl candidate. Hashtag Buckham, MHH for life, Broncos for life. Yeah, we'll see, man. Honestly, if he becomes a Pro Bowl candidate, Zach, and you'll understand what I mean by this, Phil, in a second. I hope it's not anytime soon, because that would mean that either Greenlaw or Singleton got hurt. So I just want him to get that development. But I agree with you. He's an interesting and exciting young player, Fresno State. And Zach, that pick 6 that he had, I'm pretty sure, if memory serves, it was the season finale against the Cardinals, 94 yards to the hizzy. I mean, and what's interesting about Bailey, Zach, is one of the reasons he went undrafted, if you read his scouting reports, is that he was a solid run fill guy, but teams were very unconvinced about what he could bring to the table in coverage. He had that pick 6, made the initial roster, and then waived type thing, if memory serves. But anyway, and that's where he's shining so far early in camp, is in coverage. People are going, interesting from Lavell Bailey.
And he already has a year in VJ's system. Now he gets to learn from 2 grizzled vets in Dre Greenlaw, who excels in coverage, and also Alex Singleton, who excels in the run game. I don't know about Pro Bowl being the 3rd or 4th inside linebacker, but he definitely has upside. And Chad and I both thought that after the preseason. We both wanted to see more of Lavell Bailey, in part because we were so starved for even decent inside linebacker play. Fortunately, he'll get to kind of still develop, even with Sanders' injury behind Greenlaw and Singleton.
We also have, I was just there, Gene William in the house. We've got the Brace Girdles representing. What's up, Gene? Good to see you, pal. Still rocking that awesome profile pic. What a night that was. That was a great memories. That's always going to be awesome. We get to hang again in October at the meet and greet. Gene says, my friends, how are you guys? Hearing Evan Engram say he's addicted to getting better gave me chills. Yeah. Did you know that that's a rare thing? Not everybody gets chills, but especially it's rare. Zach, have you ever been listening to music? You're more of a rap guy, hip hop, etc. But have you ever been listening to music and you get the chills from what you're hearing?
All the
That
time.
actually, that apparently that's a rare thing. I don't know that it's that rare though, because that's what I read.
Hmm.
A lot of people I know who are very into music, both as listeners and even as players, it's very common. So I don't know, but that's cool to hear. Anyway, on the subject of Engram, Zach, so far so good. Your thoughts on him saying, "I'm just addicted to getting better," which we have a clip up on that, I think, on MHH Instagram. But yeah, really cool.
I don't know what it says about me, but I get chills and goosebumps all the time, whether I'm watching something, listening to something, whatever. Even some of the podcasts we've done, Chad, have given me chills in the moment. But I've been pleasantly surprised about the type of person, individual Evan Engram is. If you listen to the fan bases of the teams he's played at or some of the media members, they made him to be some sort of malcontent when he's a big reader, an avid reader. You wrote about that, I think, Chad, last month. Seems like he has his head on his shoulders, very mature guy, and he loves the game of football. And I'm so glad the Broncos signed him.
Yeah, he talked about being a cleaner, and I recognized that phrase from a book I had read, and it turned out that, yes, that is exactly what that was about. But he already feels at home, according to him. This is what Evan Engram said about the Sean Payton offense so far. Quote, this was on Friday. Quote, "It's been awesome, really. I feel really at home in this offense. I feel like my strengths are being used at the highest level. He also challenges me to be sharp with my tools and be sharp with my details and the little things I need to clean up and get better at. He challenges me every single day," close quote. So, Zach, Sean Payton has a pretty impressive resume for when it comes to the tight end position. I think people, again, this is all, I hate even having to say it, health willing, contingent on guys staying healthy, but I think people are sleeping on how big of impact Engram could make in his first year in Denver, especially with Bo Nix ascending.
Well, they say he's nothing more than a glorified big wide receiver. Okay, who cares? He's still a damn good big wide receiver who's going to help in the slot and help in the red zone and be moved around the formation. A joker in the true sense of the word. Again, they may do, I guess, with the Adam Troutmans of the world, the Lucas Krulls, but they were missing that dimension, the interior of the passing game that Sean Payton talked about. And you didn't just upgrade a little bit with Evan Engram, a former Pro Bowler. You upgraded a plum with the addition of his services.
He also hears the criticism that he's not known for being a blocker. He talked about that, saying that, quote, "A lot of people look down and kind of doubt my run blocking skills, kind of take it for granted when I'm on the field and might think it's more pass heavy stuff." And then he says, "It's just mentality for me to come out and improve that aspect so I can be a well-rounded tight end." Close quote. I don't think we need to necessarily look forward to him being the second coming of, Daniel Graham or Dwayne Carswell, but he's working on improving that aspect of his game, but we'll see. Back to the chat. We got William Shaw, a member, as you can see. Much love and respect.
William.
Thank you, William. And for the super chat, brother, helping us keep the lights on. Appreciate you, pal. He says Greenlaw is being held out because he goes too hard at practice. He's known for that in San Fran. Dude, honestly, he's one of those guys, Zach, that it would not bother me at all if all of his training camp reps were like just mental reps, and he's out there with the guys. But he's kind of just when it's 7-on-7, 11-on-11, just let him kind of mental rep it and be ready to rock and roll in September. Honestly, that's not exactly how they're going to approach it. Sean Payton called it load management. They're just trying to be smart with how they use certain players in this summer, how much they play them and whatnot in training camp. But Greenlaw, it's kind of a fine line because you want him to get physically acclimated to the grind and the impact and the speed of the game and all that. But do you really want to push your luck too much with that injury jacket that he has? But thank you for that, William.
Yeah, definitely agreed. You want to shake the rust off and get him back to being football acclimated. It's different than just being back into shape. And you don't want to also get Greenlaw re-injured. You want to preserve your asset that you signed in free agency. I think I would give him a little bit, Chad, just to get him some chemistry and reps with the starting unit, but definitely don't let him go too hard in practice and save him 100% for week 1.
I mean, I'm realistic, guys. I do understand that's not what they're going to do. They're not going to just have him chill on the sideline and mental rep the whole summer. I'm just saying, it wouldn't bug me. But at the same time, yes, you got to – Sean Payton likes to use that, callus. You got to build a little bit of a callus. We have the Duchess, Michaela Parker, jumping in from the top rope, as she is wont to do, rocking her beautiful blue Bo Nix jersey. I love it. So good to see you. She says, sorry, I'm late. What is the Sanders status? I love you all. We love you too, Michaela. And the Sanders status, in case you missed it, is he tore a ligament in his foot. Cliff said it was a connecting ligament that's like, what? How'd you describe it, Zach? To connecting tissue?
Yeah, the connective tendon or something like that.
Anyway, and he is not expected. We don't know the full extent yet, but he is not expected to be back in time for the season to start. So he'll be a guy that starts at the very least on injured reserve with maybe a chance to come back at some point in the season.
Yeah, Michaela, thank you so much. Hope you're having a great weekend. Hope you're having a great Sunday. That's the update with Sanders. And fortunately for the Broncos, this affects the player more than the team. As you know, as we all know, Sanders is not a starter. They don't have to rely on him to be a starter. And they lost a backup. They have another backup they like in Lavell Bailey, and that's how they'll move forward behind Greenlaw and Singleton. Thank you again.
But guys, I mean, it's the 27th. We're almost done with July. August is almost here. And the first preseason game, things are going to start heating up. You heard Bo Nix talking about this yesterday, that they can't wait to play someone besides themselves, even in practice. And they're going to get that opportunity the week of the 9th because they get that joint practice with the Niners in California. Then they play them the first preseason game. That'll be fun. So we're only like a week and a couple days out, a week and a half out, I guess, in really 2 weeks from yesterday. So we're basically 2 weeks out from that game, but it's going to be here before you know it because the Broncos are grinding every single day. Training camp's happening. We got stuff cooking. Speaking of stuff cooking, Zach, John Franklin Myers has not been shy about occasionally taking to X and just kind of not too like aggro, but just at times a little bit of
passive aggressive.
It's definitely passive aggressive. All right. But today he gets added on X. A fan hits him and says, at J. Franklin Myers has to be the most underappreciated D lineman in the league. And then goes on to talk about how JFM has had 5 straight seasons of 50+ pressures. And I put my money on him making it 6 straight seasons with 50+. Can't wait to see that D-line dominate Sundays this year. And then he quote tweets that saying, quote, underappreciated and underpaid. But numbers won't lie, exclamation point. I'd bet my money too if I were you. Almost time to be great again. Close quote. So I wrote that up because he's basically, he's making 8.5, or he's making 7 and change, 7.4 million this year, which he is underpaid technically, but it remains to be seen, Zach, exactly where he falls on the list of Denver's extension priorities.
Listen, I like JFM. He's a good player, but he's not even the most underappreciated lineman on his own team. Yeah. That would go to Zach Allen. He's a good starter, but Zach Allen's on another level. Zach Allen deserves priority. I would say Nick Benito or Cortland Sutton deserve priority as well on both sides of the ball. If the Broncos had enough to go around, they would maybe eventually get around to paying JFM, or maybe they'll let him walk. We don't know. But if he thinks this is going to endear himself to the front office, if he thinks this sort of passive-aggressive attitude is going to get him a fat payday from George and Sean Payton, I don't know how well it's going to work out for him. Let's just say that.
Yeah. We shall see. We got Ed Keating in the house. What's up, buddy? Great to see you. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. Ed's been with us a long time, and, man, it's good to have you. Thank you. He says 13 days until the first preseason game and 42 days until the first regular season game. So ready. Broncos for life. Yeah, it's kind of been fun. Dylan has been writing up each opponent biggest threat on each side of the ball, starting with, of course, in order, you got the Titans week 1, and then the Colts is the latest one that published. Go give them a read. They're fun reads, and it gives you kind of an idea of where things stand with the opponents on this year's schedule. Broncos got to start hot this year, Zach. They can't do this 0-2, 0-3 business. They got to get out to, frankly, they got to be 2-0 going into that week 3 game against the Chargers.
Yeah, there's no excuse why they shouldn't be, and they have a gauntlet after that. I would think it's more of a cupcake schedule to start out with the Titans and the Colts. The Broncos should be favored in both games, but after that, you have the Chargers, you have the Eagles, you have the Bengals. You have a lot of tough opponents that are either as good as you or better that you have to prove your salt against, and the Broncos need to stack as many wins as they can get going into the meat of that schedule, Chad.
No doubt about it. We also have here Ralph jumping in again to say, how much do you see Bo playing in the preseason? I'm hoping for just the opening drive and it being the Jarrett Stidham show. I don't know. I think he'll probably play a little bit more than you might like, just because he is still young, could use the reps. The guys around him could use the reps, catching the ball from him, but not overboard. Probably a series, maybe the first game, if at all. And then the second game, Zach, I think you'll see a healthy amount, maybe not like old school dress rehearsal where they start the game and then come out of the half and play that first series. But you'll see a lot of him the second game and none of him the third game.
Yeah, I think that's how it'll go. Something similar to how they handled Bo last preseason. You don't want the starters not to play at all. We learned that with Nathaniel Hackett. You want the chemistry and the callus, like Chad said, to form.
That's a good point.
You want to keep Bo safe, and you also want to get him some time with the first string, with the new weapons he has, like Evan Engram, get the running game going with the offensive line, everything harmonious while keeping your franchise quarterback safe.
Man, I almost forgot about that. I mean, honestly, I did forget about that for a minute, but do you remember how irritated we were that Hackett was not playing any of the starters in the preseason? And we wanted to see freaking Russ, dude. That was the year, right? We wanted to see Russ, the guy that the team had given up so much for, and we finally got to see him debut against his former team, and it did not go well. It was basically all downhill from there. So I don't know, but yeah, his philosophy, Zach, blew up in his face. I don't think it was all Hackett's fault, because just that health, strength and conditioning staff just, I don't know. It's so bizarre, because the reason, I don't want to name names, but the reason he came in and was hired by the team was that so many of the players in their off season and in their personal time were going to him for strength and conditioning at his facility. So Denver's like, at the behest of many players, when they needed to hire a new guy, they're like, hey, bring him in. So it was like a combination of it was a perfect storm of just not a great strength and conditioning program meeting very bad preseason philosophy, no reckoning and appreciation for the callus factor. Blew up in Denver's face, because you remember how snake bitten the Broncos were in 2022. They led the NFL in the number of cap dollars on injured reserve. It was brutal.
Yeah, I'll raise my hand. I remember we had a debate when Hackett made that decision, and I said, the Broncos will be fine. They don't need to play in the preseason. And you were more angry about that. You were more insistent that they should play. They need that time. They need those reps, and you were right in the end, Chad. So I'm happy that Sean Payton has the opposite approach of Nathaniel Hackett.
Shoot, dude, I don't even remember what I had for breakfast. So thanks for making me look good on that front. But it took you, Zach, bringing up the Hackett thing for me to even remember that was a thing. So
unfortunately,
thank God that's in the rear view, bro.
Yes, sir. We memory holds a lot of stuff over the last decade.
Exactly. Ronk saying Broncos are still eating $32 million on Russ's contract. Yeah, but this is the last year that it's going to be that brutal, right? After this year, there's still going to be a little bit, but nothing too punitive, so to speak. This is the worst of it. The last of the worst of it, Zach, is this year.
Yeah, they're over. They see the light at the end of the tunnel. They already had a 10-win playoff season with the bulk of that dead money from the Russell Wilson deal. Now they have a little more, but you have your quarterback in place. You have your coach in place. You have your infrastructure. Now you're just aiming to make the playoffs and make a run in the postseason.
Eric Smith, to kind of shift gears here, saying it made me happy to see some good news about how Riley Moss is looking. And Zach, you had the article for us, wasn't it yesterday, about Riley Moss? Sean Payton really complimenting him, talking about how he shined last year. And the conspicuous why that's so good to hear is because just a few days prior, you had PFF basically, I don't know if it was a prediction, Zach, or just advocating or like, here's a guy that could be traded, tapping Riley Moss.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's not necessarily what Sean Payton said, because he said the same thing about Riley Moss a few months ago. I think it was at the Combine. It's tough playing opposite PS2, but Riley Moss had a good year. He's sticky in coverage. We like what he can do. He's a key asset to the organization. But it's noteworthy when he said it, because PFF did come out with that list. And it was just 15 candidates, I think it was, that could be traded sometime during the preseason or during training camp. Riley Moss was on the list because they have PS2. This was their opinion, their logic. The Broncos have PS2. They drafted Zadeh Barron. They don't need Riley, but they don't know the Broncos like we do. They don't know how good Riley Moss looked before that injury, and we don't care about subjective data and numbers they want to pull. We know that the Broncos are going to keep Riley, at least for this season, Chad. Why not?
Yeah. No, dude. Man, you don't want to be sorry you traded away from such a strength of the roster. And I think he proved himself. He's just another one of those guys that needs a little bit of luck by way of the injury bug, and his presence will pay dividends. It's a non-question to me. And what was the most impressive about Riley Moss, and this was something Sean Payton talked about, is when you're playing opposite of Surtain, to quote Payton, you're going to get a lot of business, right? And so Riley did get a lot of business, and sometimes he got burned. Other times, right? More often than not, I would say he held his own and didn't give up big plays or tackled a guy short or whatever. But one of the keys to thriving, and this includes Pat Surtain, he wasn't perfect last year, and he was the defensive player of the year. No cornerback can be absolutely perfect. I mean, you're covering a guy in space not knowing exactly which way he's going to break and go. I mean, it's almost an impossible job. And so that mentality, you got to have the forget about it thing. Like, whether it's a good or a bad, next play, you got to forget about what happened. And not all corners can do that. You know, it's mental strength and resilience factor, which was another thing, Zach, that Sean Payton complimented in Riley Moss. Then we'll grab George.
Yeah, it's like being a quarterback. You got to have amnesia. But here's the thing. People forget about how good Riley Moss looked before that knee injury. People just remember how bad he looked upon coming back. But he was matched one-on-one on an island against T. Higgins when they played Cincinnati.
Yep.
T. Higgins is a damn good receiver. He makes a lot of cornerbacks look silly. Riley Moss should have never been in that matchup one-on-one. He had a bad game, it happens, but there was still a lot of good tape he put out, and he's still a damn good corner. The Broncos would be fools to give him up now.
No doubt about it. And I think, you know, with so much on the line and in kind of reaction to how badly this passing defense regressed when Moss was out, they rushed him back. So I don't read too much into how he played in that Cincinnati game in particular. So for what it's worth, George, can't believe we have football again. Great pod, guys. Let's go Broncos country. Hit the thumbs up. Broncos for life, MHH for life. Thank you, pal. We're stoked as well. If you can't tell, great to see you. And thank you so much for your support, my friend. Great to see you. And those of you who are OGs will recall, by the way, Big Earn, I didn't realize last night it was your birthday. If I'd have known it was your birthday, I would have given you a birthday shout. So let this be a belated happy birthday to Big Earn and the hashtag Broncos country only, Zach.
Happy birthday, Ernie. Hope it was a great one. Thank you for tuning in with us tonight. Hope you're having a good Sunday.
We'd sing you the song, but, you know, YouTube and Facebook would copyright claim us. Believe it or not, that's actually true. Okay, where are we at time-wise? 33 minutes. We're doing pretty good. But there was one down here I wanted to touch on, but I can't remember. It did a jump on me here. So hang tight. Let's grab this one from Eric to get. He says, dude, I'll be totally bummed if this season winds up being his last in Denver. Moss has grown into my favorite player on the team other than Bo. It won't be. It's not going to be his last in Denver. I wouldn't worry about it, honestly. I really wouldn't worry about it.
I just, I understand. I can't even say that. I don't understand where the PFF author was coming from putting Moss on the trade block. Why would you even suggest to trade Moss? Even if he lost his starting job, you play in the AFC West. You play against Mahomes. You play against Herbert. You play against now Geno Smith. You play in the AFC with Lamar Jackson, with Josh Allen. It's a tough conference, tough division. You want as much pass defense help as possible. And again, Riley Moss looked like a long-term cornerback too. So keep him. Do not trade him.
We got some virgin ears over here from Matt Holton on Facebook, Zach, saying that first time listening. So, hey, welcome. Thank you.
Welcome,
Glad
Matt.
you
Thank
found
you.
us, big dog. Our offensive line is not as good as the experts think. I love the Broncos. I'm not a complainer, but what are your thoughts, Zach, on his premise that this O-line isn't as good as the flowers it's been given, especially this offseason?
Well, Matt, I'll take a wild leap and I'll assume that you think that because of how bad the Broncos running game looked and you thought the Broncos offensive line could not open up any holes for the running backs. But that's actually not that true. They did struggle a little bit, especially with Wattenberg at center, but the holes were there. The lanes were there. The vision, though, was not. The experience and the talent in the backfield simply was not. In pass protection, they were amazing. Bo Nix did help. He avoided some sacks, got himself out of some pressure, but Garrett Bowles was stable at left tackle. Mike McGlinchey, after a little rocky debut with the Broncos the season before, he was stable at right tackle, and you had great performances in the interior from Powers and Miners. I think the offensive line was as good as the experts said. I think the offensive line was as good as the data showed, and as good as my eyes thought they were, Chad. They were a damn good front five in 2024.
Not only that, Zach, but only 2 offensive lines relinquished fewer sacks than the Broncos. And
Good
let's
point.
not forget that the Broncos O-line finished first in the run block and pass block win rate via ESPN's analytics. So this isn't PFF. This is ESPN run block and pass block win rate. So I don't know. Maybe that I'm just going to go out on a limb here. As Zach mentioned, Matt, maybe it has something to do with the failure of the run game to really get off the ground. But I think it also might have something to do with, I wonder anyway, like trauma still from the Garrett Bowles stuff of old, pre-2020 Garrett Bowles, or like, McGlinchey not exactly living up to his billing in the contract he got. It's a sum of its parts type thing. I mean, with obviously Miners and Bowles being the shining the stalwarts on the unit. But I'll tell you this, Matt, just count your, thank your lucky stars, count your blessings that all 5 starters are returning. Huge boon to Bo Nix in year 2. Jimmy, what is up, dude? Jimmy Thielen in the house. What's going on? Great to see you, pal. Hope you've been doing well. Says, I've been hearing that Pat Bryant is making a big splash in training camp. Yeah, he's looked good. I would not say, Zach, he's garnered as many oohs and ahs up to this point as Troy Franklin. But Troy Franklin, he couldn't even really get like a full attaboy from his head coach. So let's not go right in the Troy Franklin has turned a corner headlines quite yet. But he did, Sean Payton, Zach, talk about Pat Bryant. I think it was, let's see, what day was this? So this was Saturday. Let me find the Friday. Here's the Friday one. He came up, Pat Bryant. I'll read to you guys in case you missed it, what he said about Franklin. Dang it, I can't find it off the top of my head. But yes, so far Bryant has looked good. One of the things that was said about Bryant too, Zach, by Sean Payton is that he only has to be told something once. You love hearing that.
Yeah, Peyton was channeling the old Bill Parcells cliche, don't put him in Canton just yet. And it's true. There's a lot of summer and fall left to go. But Franklin and Bryant have different skill sets. Franklin's more of the burner, and he's shown off that speed and the separation ability in training camp. But as one reporter put it about Pat Bryant, it seems like no matter who's the quarterback, Chad, the balls, the passes are gravitating to Pat Bryant. They just go his way naturally, and he makes the most of it. He's very natural hands. He's a glider with the ball in his hands when he's running down the field. I wasn't the biggest fan of the selection. I'm not going to lie. When they made it, I thought the Broncos might have reached. But now, potentially getting a Michael Thomas clone in the 3rd round and how good he's looked on the field, he's going to be so beneficial in the red zone for Bo Nix. You cannot have too many weapons. And I think it might be a hot take. Pat Bryant is going to push for a wide receiver 2 opposite Cortland Sutton this season.
I found it. Here's what he said on what he looks for, what he's looking for in Pat Bryant. Quote, just the transition into all the little things. So again, we're hearing about the details and the nuances. Remember, Evan Engram brought that up. The splits, Peyton said. He's smart, and it's just getting him into position so that these plays, ... For most of the rookie class, it's the same. Their acclimation to it. They're behind, but he is a quick study, close quote. So that's the latest thing Peyton has said on the record about Pat Bryant. And then Zach, he actually on Friday was asked about all those guys vying for the wide receiver 2 job, with the exception of Marvin Mims. On the Lavell Bailey front, he was asked, quote, he's strong in traffic, he has good hands, and he's someone that I think picks things up really quickly. It all comes easy to him, close quote. So Bailey is obviously earning his coach's praise. And then here's what he actually said, Zach, Peyton, about Troy Franklin. He said, quote, I feel like we begin to see that development towards the latter part of last season. I'm looking forward to seeing him. He's had a real good offseason. It's just a little early to make headlines. Troy Franklin's making steps up. He had a good day. Close quote. So that's what's the latest been said about Peyton, Zach, on the subject of this young receiving core, all of whom that are vying for that wide receiver 2 job, Zach, were drafted by Sean Payton either in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and I guess in Bailey's case, 7th round.
Remember, this isn't the first time we've heard this from Peyton about Franklin. A couple months ago, we wrote about it. He predicted an ascension for Troy Franklin in year 2. But Pat Bryant, wasn't he the one who said no block, no rock as a wide receiver? I love that so much. It shows a lot of self-consciousness in a good way, a lot of self-awareness. He knows where he stands as a rookie. He knows what it takes to get on the field and what he has to do. And I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. A lot of Lavell Bailey fans are going to be disappointed by the emergence of Pat Bryant.
By the way, on the subject of the blocking thing, we're learning as time marches on that the Sherfield signing, Trent Sherfield, special teams, etc., kind of the replacement for Tremont Smith, but he's going to factor into this offense. Listen to this. This is what Peyton said about Sherfield yesterday. Quote, he's tough and he can run. The other thing he can do is block. And so we've always had a handful of receivers that can run and stretch the field. And when you get one that can do that and then also block, you can set up play action. It marries well to the run game. He's pretty competitive, close quote. So Sherfield, Zach, earning some props from Sean Payton too, and I haven't really thought much about him as a factor in all these wide receiver discussions.
I haven't either. Anything they can get out of him on offense, to me, would be a bonus. We know he's going to be a maven on special teams. And now it seems like the Broncos' top 5 wide receivers are all set on the 53. They're all locks. So good luck, Joaquin Davis and A.T. Perry. It's going to be a battle to crack that squad.
Here's a fun one, shifting gears, from Rodney. Says, hey, Chad and Zach, who leads the team in interceptions? Do you think it's going to be Pat Surtain this year, Zach?
I think a lot of teams are going to throw away from him, smartly. Whoever's playing cornerback too, I think would get the most. Maybe Brandon Jones at safety would be up there, Hufanga. I'm going to go with a very hot take, Rodney. I'll say the rookie Zadeh Barron leads the Broncos in picks in year 1.
Man, it would be easy to just go with Surtain. But that's not really been his calling card as a pro. Mm-mm. And a lot of it is because, of course, the lower exposure rate. He doesn't get near the number of opportunities. And that's by design. Broncos want to keep it that way, in all honesty. But I don't know, man. I'm going to say just for fun, to kind of make it different than your answer, Brandon Jones, who we heard from yesterday. And let's not forget, he had 3 interceptions last year, only 1 fewer. Wait, did PS2 have 3 or 4 last year? I think it was 4, one of which was a pick 6. But Jones had 3. He also had a fumble recovery. He had his fingerprints on like 4 or 5 takeaways. I'm going to go with Brandon Jones, just for fun. We'll see, though. It's hard to anticipate that kind of thing. I mean, it's one of those flip a coin. It's so determined by chance. And I think back, though, Zach, to the days like Champ Bailey's like prime. 2005, he had 8 picks. I might be getting this backwards. 05, 8 picks. 06, 10 picks. Dude, could you imagine what that would do for a young team like the Broncos? One guy accounting for 10 takeaways. I mean, it's off the charts.
It's a good problem to have, though. We can't think of just one player that could be a candidate. 4 players legitimately in the Broncos secondary could lead the Broncos in picks. I would go with Brandon Jones, Chad. I agree with you if I don't pick Barron.
I'm excited about Brandon Jones, dude. I really am. Like last year, I thought he was an absolute revelation. And it was interesting what he said yesterday, Zach, about PJ Locke, who, of course, had the spinal fusion surgery in January, and that it's been miraculous, the results. I mean, there's been no delay. I'll tell you this. If I had a spinal fusion surgery, Zach, in January, you would not see me out there running around doing football in July. I'd be like still probably on my back, prostrate, begging my wife to bring me like a cup of coffee or something. But PJ Locke's ready to go. Day one of training camp, props to him. But what Jones said is not only that he looks like he's quote unquote not lost a step, but the speed, the this and that, but that he's grown an inch. So PJ Locke, Zach, is listed on the website at 5'10". The Broncos might need to, as a result of that surgery, relist him at 5'11".
Watch this become the new en vogue thing for NFL players. Go get spinal fusion surgery to gain an inch. No, but on a serious, I'm really happy that PJ Locke is back. I still think he's a little overpaid just from a realistic standpoint. But as a third safety, from a talent standpoint, he can offer a lot to Vance Joseph secondary. I hope he maintains the back well, doesn't flare up again, and he can have no setbacks from the surgery going forward. I wish him the best.
Big Ern says Bo Nix goes 13-4 and beyond. I love it, dude. I love the optimism. I'm really excited about Bo Nix, as you guys know, and just hearing how his teammates are talking about him, and just that he's like the dog mentality, so focused. He's on a mission, and I like the way this thing is going. Leroy's, what's up, bro? Mile high salute, right back at you. Would you bring in a veteran inside linebacker to replace Drew Sanders, Zach, or would you try to keep it in-house? One of our dedicated, many years over, longtime listeners wants to know.
Yeah, thanks for the comment, Leroy. The Broncos have 2 veteran starters already in Singleton and Greenlaw. I want to see what they have in the younger players. I want to see what Lavell Bailey can do now with a more of an expanded role. Maybe they had a hit on something with J.B. Brown or Kareem Reed. We don't know. But as a third or fourth inside linebacker, you don't have to spend money on a veteran. See what you have with one of the younger guys, and who knows?
I'll say that if they were to do it, I agree that at least for the short term, just let it play out. Pads are coming on tomorrow. Let's see kind of how it comes together. But if you do go to the free agent field, to me, the guy that makes the most sense with CJ Mosley hanging it up is Eric Kendricks. And I don't think it would cost all that much to bring him in as a very nice piece of veteran insurance with Drew Sanders going down. But again, we don't know how long Drew's going to be out yet. It's looking like at least the first 4 games, hopefully not much longer than that. But thank you, Leroy. Plain old me wants to know what we think of the constant disrespecting of Bo Nix and the Broncos in general. Zach, this is a topic that we could spend an hour
hours
just like going off, but boil it down for your boy here, plain old me.
What do I think of it? I'm used to it. I'm sure I can speak for Chad when I say that. I can speak for a lot of you when I say that. We're used to it after a decade now. One playoff season, unfortunately, did not erase the narratives in a lot of people's minds, the derangement syndrome that a lot of people have about the Broncos because they were so irrelevant, because they were so bad, and because they were so boring for so long. Same thing has been entrenched with Bo Nix. He's just an extension. If he played for any other team, they'd be saying the same things about him coming into the NFL. The fact that he plays for the Broncos just makes it doubly worse. But he has no arm strength. He should have been a second-round pick. He's never going to amount to anything in the NFL. He's a check-down merchant, system merchant. All that has been disproven. And anyone with even the semblance of a brainstem knows that after last season. But the ones that keep hating will continue to keep hating regardless. They will go down. They will die on that hill no matter what. So just let them hate, plain old me, and know that you know football more than they do. They don't know ball. Let them hate.
Well said. Nothing to add. Thank you for being with us, plain old me. And William's saying, hey, I get goosebumps listening to music a lot. And yes, Conga, thank you. I was searching for the word. It's called frisson if you get goosebumps. And honestly, when I was a kid, I would get goosebumps from my favorite music like all the time. As I got older, the goosebumps are a lot more fewer and far between. And I'll tell you what happens in its place is, and maybe this is also a product of getting older, but instead of like the goosebumps light up your arms and you go, whoa, you're like stoked on whatever you're hearing. I'll sometimes get like the teary eyes, not where you're weeping or you're crying or you're sad. It's not that. It's that emotional like charge where, you might call it verklempt, where you're just kind of clammed up for a second, and then sometimes get the chills. Scott, do you get the goosebumps from music? Yeah. Frisson. Supposedly it's this rare thing. I'm not so sure it is, really. I'm not so sure it is.
I think it's more rare to not get goosebumps from music.
Yeah, no doubt, dude. Graham says, I just heard Philip Lindsay say he's about to get a deal done with the Broncos. So circa 19. Let's see, or 20. Yeah, 20. You're right. But then they chose to sign Melvin Gordon. Not sure if that's well known, but yeah, I saw that as well, my friend. And it's, let me tell you, if you want the guys who will freaking die on the Philip Lindsay hill, you came to the right podcast, my friend, because we were absolutely pissed off about that. We wanted Phil to get paid and for the Broncos to invest in him. And then they brought in Melvin Gordon. And that story, I'll paraphrase him. He basically said that he was hearing from his agent. They got the deal. It's all in the works, this and that. He gets a phone call like late at night from his agent
1 o'clock
saying,
in the morning.
Yeah, at 1 a.m. I mean, you call me at 1 a.m., someone better be like, something's wrong, and they're in the street bleeding to death or something. But that, hey, yeah, so the Broncos, nothing yet, but they're going to sign Melvin Gordon. And he's like, well, wait a minute, what is that? Where's that put my thing? And he's like, well, that means that the money they were going to give you, they're giving to Melvin Gordon. And then later that year, Zach, if memory serves, Elway, he did kind of a Chris Harris Jr.-esque kind of thing with his contract. Like he threw a few extra bucks, but not a big deal. It wasn't a life-changing thing. I mean, this would have been life-changing money if they would have paid Philip Lindsay. And then he goes on to talk about, and I'm going to serve it back to you, that he was so pissed about it and so kind of like hyper-focused on the disrespect and the money that it compromised him, and he ended up getting hurt. And that was his injury-prone year in Denver, and that was his last year in Denver. And how it took his running backs coach coming to him like halfway through the year going, dude, all you're doing focusing on this is hurting yourself, which kind of shook him out of it. But by then, Zach, it was kind of too late for that season.
He said he was getting snippy. He was firing back at his coaches and becoming just a negative attitude. And I think it was Curtis Modkins, the running back coach at the time, said, get over it. You got to get over it at this point. And a lot of people are saying it's sour grapes and how bad Phil came off for telling that story. I think it was a real raw look into the life of a young NFL player trying to make their own way, trying to get generational money, life-changing money. And Philip Lindsay, you could argue, deserved that contract more than Melvin Gordon did. Just sucks the way things turned out.
Truth is the truth, man. He was just telling the truth, what happened. And yeah, it's one of those things where pragmatists, like Scott at the time or Nick at the time are like, hey, you don't pay a guy for services rendered in the NFL. You're paying based on what you expect to get back. And I think for the truly special guys, it's a little bit of, you got to do a little bit of both. Like you got to recognize the fact that the value he provided your team, granted, it was right smack dab in the middle of the worst stretch of losing for the Broncos in the Super Bowl era. But still, what he provided your team as a back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher, the first guy to go undrafted and rush for 1,000 yards and make the Pro Bowl as a starter, as a rookie ever. Like he's the first guy that ever did that. Yeah, dude, you should have thrown him a contract. It didn't have to be crazy. We're talking about the NFL salary cap. Throw him, what did they give Melvin Gordon? 2 years, $16 million, right? If memory serves. I mean, dude, they could have afforded to pay Philip Lindsay, and instead it screwed up his kind of vibe. He got hurt, and then by the time he was spit back out onto the free agent market, he wasn't viewed the same anymore as he would have been had it been that previous offseason where he was coming off back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. So that's still a sore spot for me. I feel like that late Elway regime did do Philip Lindsay dirty. And people will argue, well, hey, obviously Elway was right. I mean, he didn't last much longer in the league when he left, right? Like he was playing on borrowed time, but it's one of those situations where I wonder, hey man, if he gets the full faith and support of the organization, his home organization, by the way, not just the fact that he signed with Denver, but he's from Denver, right? He's like the Colorado kid. That's his nickname. If he would have got that, Zach, maybe he doesn't get into that weird headspace, and maybe he doesn't get all those injuries in 2020, and maybe his whole NFL story continues on. I mean, heck, he could still be playing. He's still young. But yeah, I really feel bad about the way things shook out for Phil.
And guess what Phil never did? Fumbled. Guess what Melvin Gordon did all the freaking time for $16 million, Chad? Fumbled. He literally cost the Broncos football games. He literally was the reason why the Broncos lost football games at certain points. Philip Lindsay wouldn't have done that. You could argue you could have taken Melvin Gordon's $16 million and given it to Philip Lindsay, and on that basis alone, it would have been a better return on investment. Sore spot for me too.
Oh, dude, he almost single-handedly won Denver games in 2018, especially.
Absolutely.
That Case Keenum season, dude. Like, Graham's got us off on a huge tangent here, but hey, why not? Sunday night, right? But yeah, I hate how that shook out for Philip Lindsay, dude. But I'm stoked for him that he's found a second career doing radio and media in Denver, close to home, at home. So stoked for him on that. Sonny says Nix had the longest air yard pass in the league last year at 72.4 yards. Nick Wright is just too much of a Chiefs fan to give the Broncos any respect. Well, yeah, nobody should listen to Nick Wright. He's proven himself to be a completely biased analyst, and we all have our biases. But, like, you got to have a semblance of self-awareness if you're covering the league. Zach and I, yes, we cover the league, but we cover the Denver Broncos. We're obviously a lot more knowledgeable on the ins and outs and the roster and everything of the Broncos. In Nick Wright's case, dude, he's one of those guys that, yeah, MBLEX, total, also, by the way, member, love it, dude. He's one of those guys that even in the face of being proven wrong, and he knows he's wrong, he'll just continue to walk into the buzzsaw because he thinks he's somehow protecting his credibility. When in all honesty, people know when you're wrong. People aren't stupid, and they appreciate more. And this includes anything from a family life, friendships, work environment, especially leadership. When you're wrong, the sooner you admit you're wrong, take ownership, and then move on, actually the better, because people go, oh, he's human, A. B, not too many people just like will readily admit when they're wrong. And it actually buys you way more credibility than it would be if you try and hang on to this dwindling take that you had, that Bo Nix sucks. So yeah, Nick wrong indeed, guys. Don't waste your time with that guy.
But that doesn't pay the bills, though. You know, Chad, admitting you're wrong and being fair and saying positive things instead of negative, it doesn't get clicks. It doesn't get talked about. And like Scott said in the private chat, he wouldn't even know who Nick Wright is if it wasn't for the show. Whenever they have some clickbait, whenever they want to rile us up, we're giving in by talking about it. We're feeding the trolls. And sometimes we have to. It's part of our job. But that's what they want. That's why they put out these lists where Bo Nix is ranked in the 20s or Sean Payton's ranked in the teens in terms of head coaches. They want us to be able to talk about it and share it and tweet it. And that's what we're doing. So let Nick Wright think of his own opinions. Look at him. That says it alone, Chad.
Scott says, if it weren't for this show, I wouldn't even know who Nick Wright is because he pisses off fans so much. We end up talking about it on the show. Fair point, right? Let him do his thing. Who cares? Ronk, James Marilat from 104.3 The Fan is also saying that the Broncos are going to finish with 9 wins and 8 losses.
That's his shtick.
Yeah, he's kind of a negative Nancy. He always was. Slightly pushing I've always liked his work, like especially he's the OG Mile High Sports guy, and but he on the radio in particular and kind of his written stuff, he seems to Zach kind of like whatever the stance is that's going to create a modicum of controversy, that's what he's going to take. And so you got to wonder, is that what you really think, or are you just trying to generate engagement and clicks, right? So I don't know, but I do respect him. Like when he gets on the mic and you hear him, he knows what he's talking about. Then all of a sudden you kind of read some of his stuff. You're like, wait a minute. This is not adding up. This is not congruent. But I'm not trying to talk any smack on him because I got nothing but respect for him, to be honest.
Well, Andrew Mason kind of aired him out with his predictions the last couple of years. Two seasons ago, he was predicting 11 wins or so. It's just for interaction. It's just to get us to do exactly what we're doing now, like I mentioned a minute ago. Talk about it. So for Murley at mission successful.
Richard, last thing, in case you guys are just jumping in, Drew Sanders is going to be out with a injury to his foot, a ligament. For the beginning of the season, he'll be gone. He won't, no more training camp action, no more preseason. He's probably going to miss at least the first 4 games of the regular season. And that's the skinny on poor Drew Sanders, man. I feel so bad for him. But, guys, we got a few messages for you. Then we're going to dip out because we just hit the 1 hour mark. Having fun, baby.
I just noticed that. Unbelievable. You guys make it so fun each and every single night. That was the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on X at the MHH pod. You can follow the main account on X at Mile High Huddle. Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out MHHmerch.com. Get you some. If you haven't done so yet, please drop us a like at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us on Instagram at Mile_High_Huddle. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please, 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 very important, you subscribe, you like, you share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
And also, guys, YouTube, become a member. We got Broncos Book Club. We're going to be kicking that off next Saturday. So if you guys have the Mike Kliss book, we're going to start with the Elway years. Get that first chapter under your belt, and we'll be discussing it on Saturday. And then also, we got a lot of cool stuff cooking on the membership front. So there's a video up on the channel. If you click join, you'll see me talking about the different things we're doing. Check it out. Another great way to support us. And we're going to be feeding a lot of content there. Plus, members-only streams from Zach and I that, of course, it's going to have a strong Broncos slant. That's what we do here. But in those formats also, there will be more room to kind of ask us anything, talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Whereas on the podcast, we'll sometimes go off on little tangents, like about do you get goosebumps listening to music and stuff like that. But we keep it 99% for guys like Big Earn, Broncos country only, right? So anyway, a mile high salute and a special shout out to the great Super Chat superstars, supporters, and members helping us keep the lights on tonight. Like the Duchess, Michaela Parker in the house. Love you, Michaela. The Papa Bear, David McElrath, Taylor. Appreciate you, pal. Phil, who is a new member on YouTube as well. Gene William, Ralph, I'm pretty sure. I think I saw Ralph sign up. I'm not sure, but thank you for the support, bro. The Ronk and the Hizzy. William Shaw's a member and a superstar. Ed Keating, thank you, pal, for the super chat. George Fox, you're a legend, so consistent. And Jimmy as well. Thank you, guys. Much love and respect. The Broncos are back at it tomorrow. Pads are going on. It's about to get cranked up a notch or two. We'll see how these guys express themselves, Zach, with the pads on tomorrow. So we should have plenty to talk about tomorrow night. We'll see you then.
Football is back, baby. Have a great rest of your Sunday, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.